February 23, 1945. The amphitheatre north of Motoyama Airfield. Number 2, Northern Iwo Jima. The air tastes like pumice and cordite. Corporal Hershel Williams, 21 years old, 3rd Marine Division, shifts under the 70-pound M2 flamethrower rig and nods to his scout. The tank clanks the wand, glints, and every Japanese rifleman inside the hill seems to know exactly what that silhouette means. You feel the weight with him as he steps off the coral, hard ash one stride, then another closing the last 40 yards that no one wants to cross. Machine guns open first, flat and cold. The hill is not a hill, it is a system. Teeth of reinforced concrete basalt lips around cave mouths, galleries linked by tunnels that duck behind rock and reappear downslope. Marines from 1st Battalion, 21st Marines mark the embrasure that has been stitching the draw all morning. Williams crouches behind a blasted stone. The wand sags, his assistant gunner slaps the igniter check. A rifleman on his left yells, then folds. Everyone goes lower. This is how it will be for hours and for days across this island. The flamethrower man is the point of the spear, and the spear is all elbows and edges. The kit is not just heavy, it is obvious. Twin fuel cylinders, a nitrogen tank, a hose loop, a valve body that must be coaxed with both hands. There is no way to hide it. The wand must rise to aim. And the moment it rises, the cave complex wakes. Rifles. Light machine guns. Grenades that arc from side ports you cannot see. A crack from somewhere else entirely. The operator and his assistant absorb the attention like a magnet. Williams punches forward. Range matters. The M2 will throw fire roughly 20 to 40 yards depending on wind and mix, but caves on Iwo Jima are dug with murder in mind. Apertures lip back from the surface, so a straight line of sight is rare. You have to step closer than you want, and then closer still until the wand can paint the inner throat of the hole. It is never one hole. Behind the first embrasure, there is a dogleg, a side chamber, a covered grenade shelf. Kill the flame too early, and you get nothing. Hold it a second too long, and every rifle within 200 yards is already drawing a bead on the center of your chest. Covering fire tries to buy seconds. BARs chatter. A demolition man palms a satchel. A Sherman flame tank from 5th Tank Battalion grinds somewhere behind the crest line, trying to nose up without exposing its glacis. But the ground betrays angles. The hill makes you climb in cutback lanes. Each lane is pre-sighted by the defenders of Lieutenant General Tadamichi Kuribayashi, and each lane has a flanking port you did not notice. The Japanese do not waste shots on the line infantry if a flamethrower silhouette is present. They know the economy of the fight, kill the man with the fire, and the cave lives to shoot again this afternoon and again tonight. Williams sprints the last stretch. The igniter clicks. A tongue of fire uncoils and crawls into the mouth of the pillbox. Heat slaps back as the mix atomizes and sticks. The cave inhales flame, coughs smoke, then howls. The assistants shove more fuel forward. A grenade thumps behind a shoulder-high rock to his right, and fragments stitch the ash. He flinches, steadies, and sweeps the wand to rake a side slit that only appears when the first position lights up. The Marines on the flanks rise just enough to heave 2 satchels and a pair of phosphorus grenades. The cave goes dull, then bright, then dull again. When he turns to drop back for another run, the vulnerability is worst. The operator is tall now. The tanks are a ringed target. The path home is the same path every rifle zeroed in on 5 seconds ago. Fire returns from a second aperture that never flashed before. The wand man cannot shoot while moving without wasting precious fuel, and he cannot go prone without crushing the hose. The assistant tries to cover with an M, one then yanks the hose free from a snag of rebar. 2 rounds ping off the valve block. If one ruptures a line or snaps an igniter lead, the team becomes 2 men carrying dead weight under fire. Across the meat grinder complex at Hill 382, Turkey Knob and the amphitheatre, this geometry repeats. The M2 demands closeness. The cave system punishes closeness. The operator must expose to aim. The enemy waits for exposure. The tanks make him easy to identify. The defenders prioritize exactly that outline. Even when a run succeeds, the tunnel behind the target may connect to a chamber that vents out 30 yards away, where another crew is already waiting to counterattack the resupply lane. Assault sections rotate bodies and flame units through ash that eats boots and lungs. Every attrition equation here tilts against the man with the wand. By afternoon, Williams will cut paths that infantry can hold, and flame tanks will nose up to scorch positions the M2 cannot reach. But at this hour, the reason the casualty rate for portable flamethrower operators climbs so brutally is carved into the ground itself. To kill a bunker, you must stand where the bunker wants you to stand, and everyone on both sides knows it. February 24th, 1945. The meat grinder, Iwo Jima. Turkey Knob glowers over a maze of trenches and ports that never stop blinking. Platoons from 24th Marines edge forward one shell hole at a time, and the flamethrower men are already bandaged, blackened or gone. A tank clanks up behind a shattered terrace. Its profile is familiar, but the business end is not. An M4A3 of 5th Tank Battalion, fitted with a POA-CWSH, one flame projector. The Marines call a Zippo angles its bow toward a pillbox slot that has chewed the draw all morning. The change in procedure is audible. Where the M2 wand whispered before it roared, the tank's compressor rumbles. Where a man had to show a chest full of fuel at 30 yards, a 30-ton hull can deliver a jet from farther out, then hold the line, while infantry are still in cover. A scratch team of riflemen flags a slit with tracer. The tank commander calls corrections over the interphone, taps the gunner's shoulder, and the projector breathes. A white core of fuel reaches sticks, blossoms, and then curls into the rock lip as if pulled by a hand. Heat punches back in waves. The port goes black, then orange, then black again. Infantry breathe for the first time in an hour. They surge to toss satchels, and this time the counterfire is thin. Not gone, never gone on this island, but thin enough. The tank slews to face a second aperture that only reveals itself when the first dies. Cave systems here talk to each other. When one voice goes silent, another tries to shout down the assault lane. The Zippo answers both. The projector traverses with the gun cradle, no wand to snag, no hose to kink, no man standing tall to be read by every rifle on the ridge. The operator, who used to be a single point of failure, is now an armoured system with a crew, spares, and a platoon of hulls that can trade places when something breaks. Word of mouth hardens into method by mid-afternoon. The company commander does not send the M2 forward alone anymore. He pairs a Zippo with a gun tank, adds a dozer blade where possible, and keeps the infantry tight to the treads. The dozer noses berms into cover, the gun tank watches for ports that spit grenades, and the Zippo paints anything that breathes hot air. A demolitions man waits with a satchel for the moment after the flame, when the rock is still, when the tunnel mouths have inhaled all the oxygen they will get for the next minute. Across the northern sector, the same pattern repeats with 4th Marine Division against Hill 382 and the amphitheatre, and with 3rd Marine Division pressing the benches north of Motoyama Airfield, No. 2. V Amphibious Corps staff push more fuel forward, more igniters, more repair parts for the tank projectors. Navy beach parties and shore party units drag 5-gallon cans through ash that behaves like ball bearings. It is logistics in a crucible. The portable M2 stays on the roster. There are dead, ground cuts and reverse slope vents that no hull can sight into. But the ratio flips. The wand becomes the finish tool, the Zippo, the door opener. Japanese defenders adapt. They stop firing the moment a tank slews toward them, trying to trick the projector into wasting a burst at bare rock. They seed the approaches with mines and bury short sticks of TNT under ash where a tank must pivot. A team of 2 infantrymen sprints to a shadowed notch with a lunge mine gambling on a charge to the side of the hull. The Marines answer with rifle screens and BARs keyed to movement with satchel charges chucked into blind corners, seconds after each flame run with smoke to blind the inevitable side ports that wake as soon as the projector fires. Casualties among the portable flamethrower teams do not stop. They are still the only tool that can snake fire around a tight bend where a tank cannot bring its bow. But the worst geometry begins to soften. A Zippo can loiter for a second flame without exposing a human torso in the open. A crew can swap projector nozzles and rearm behind a fold in the ground while rifle squads cover. And when a tank is hit and stalls, another can push its tail, drag it back, or simply take its place and keep the heat on the same tunnel mouth, so the defenders never reclaim the firing lane. As dusk folds over Turkey, Nob, the infantry, mark a path with engineer tape where the morning offered only dead ground and guesses. The price is still paid in men who had to walk to the lip, raise the wand, and make the first holes breathe fire. But the shift is underway. The island is teaching procedure, and the procedure is brutal. In its clarity, armor carries the flame to the threshold. Men carry it around the last corner, only when the last corner truly demands it. A hill that demanded blood for every yard begins to give ground in tens of yards, then in 100, as flame and steel learn to move as one. February 25, 1945. Hill 362, north of Motoyama Airfield, No. 2. A grey wind crosses the terraces and brings sulphur to the tongue. Platoons from 26th Marines pick their way up a slope that looks dead until it is not. A flamethrower man crouches behind a lava lip with his assistant pressed in tight. The hose drapes over stone like a signal flag. Everyone in range can read it. The reasons the wand man falls so often are not abstract. They are numbered and physical. Weight first. The M2 pack rides high and stiff. The cylinders cantilever the back and force the operator to move in a tall, pumping gait. Tall means visible. Visible means predictable. Second range. 20 to 40 yards on paper shrinks in crosswinds and in air that rises hot from blasted rock. Cave mouths here are undercut, dog-legged and sized to defeat a straight jet. To score a kill, you must stand inside the beaten zone that every port can reach. Third time. A full tank gives seconds of flame, not minutes. Each second invites a dozen rifles to converge on one chest plate. Fourth sequence. A run has steps that cannot be compressed: rise, aim, crack the valve, hold, sweep, break, drop, move. The enemy understands the cadence and shoots the peaks. A team tries to solve some of this by stacking bodies around the operator. 2 riflemen protect flanks. A BAR covers the next lateral. A grenadier readies phosphorus. The assistant mirrors the wand man's motion and watches the hose for snags. But the defense is built for this shape of attack. Kuribayashi's engineers have vent shafts that open downslope sight ports that only show when a man stands to aim, and stair-step trenches that let a grenadier pop up for 2 seconds at 20 yards. They aim for the tanks first. 1 punch to the valve body, 1 fragment through a hose, and the team is frozen on the slope with 50 pounds of steel that no longer breathes fire. Resupply kills men too. The operator is a sprinter tied to a gas station that moves slowly under fire. Shore party details, and engineers drag 5-gallon cans forward and swap igniter cartridges in dust that clogs everything. The path back from the lip to the resupply pit is charted by enemy observers who have watched 3 runs in a row. The enemy lets the first pass, then hammers the man when he turns to go. An M1 thrown across a shoulder cannot cancel that geometry. Only an armoured bow can. Even when armour is present, there are places a tank cannot put its nose. Reverse slope slot. Vent that exits a foot above a bench cut. Serpentine trench that folds twice in 6 yards. Here the wand is still essential. The casualty math spikes at the moment when the tank has burned the first mouth clean, and the infantry must snake fire around a corner the projector cannot reach. The operator dashes the last 6 yards as the ash tries to swallow his boots. He must not trip. He must not let the wand dip and drag. He must not flinch when a side port blinks at knee height. The enemy's countermeasures are tuned to seconds. They freeze when the tank looks their way, then explode when the projector stops. They throw an instant smoke pot to break the wand man's sight picture, then roll grenades by sound up the trench floor. They bait with an empty port, so the operator wastes a half burst, then open a second mouth to rake the withdrawal lane. The more times an assault section repeats the drill on the same terrace, the more likely the defense will time the 4th step in the sequence and shoot the man at the top of his breath. Commanders adapt the choreography. In 4th Marine Division's sector, Zippo pairs work in relay, so a projector is always hot while the other reloads. In 4th Marine Division's fights for Hill 382, and the amphitheatre rifle squads learn to throw satchels 2 yards inside the first bend, placing blast where flame cannot pool. In 5th Marine Division's ground north of Suribachi, engineers carve footholds and cut low crawl slots, so the wand man can rise once only at the exact yard line, instead of 3 times on the way in. These changes shave seconds off exposure and move deaths from the operator to the rock itself. But the wand remains the single silhouette both sides track. It is the one tool that converts dead ground into dead position. That value is why it is used. That value is why it is hunted. Dusk takes the color out of the slope. Voices flatten. A runner from 26 Marines brings an extra igniter and a rumor that more Zippo fuel hit the beach. The team that made the last burn lies 2 terraces down, a corpsman working under a poncho. The new operator stares at the trench bend that still breathes a thin thread of smoke. He knows the steps. He knows the seconds. He knows the ground has memorized both. He rises anyway, and the slope inhales. February 26, 1945. The amphitheater north of Motoyama Airfield, number 2. A volcanic bowl full of intersecting arcs. 4th Marine Division presses along the benches, while demolition teams count fuses by touch. A pair of M4, a 3S from 5th Tank Battalion hunker behind a lava lip. One carries the projector kit, the other carries the gun. Over the net, a calm voice. Projector up, short burst. Then dozer left. The bow drops. The tank breathes fire. What began as improvisation turns into drill by the minute. Rifle squads mark ports with tracer, so the projector does not waste fuel on blind rock. The gun tank watches for grenade slits that wake when the flame starts. A dozer blade hull noses ash into a low berm the infantry can hug when the cave answers with a side vent. Engineers trail with satchels, and a spare igniter wrapped in oilcloth. The wand team waits under the berm, not in front of it, until the projector has pulled a black breath from the hole. Then they rise, sprint the last 10 yards, and pour flame around the bend where steel cannot look. A sequence finally that steals seconds back from the enemy's timing. Names attached to ground. Major General Clifton B. Cates's 4th Marine Division fights through Hill 382 and the amphitheater. Major General Graves B. Erskine's 3rd Marine Division presses the benches north of Motoyama Airfield number 2. Major General Keller E. Rocky's 5th Marine Division pushes over the northern ridges toward Hill 362A and 362B. The enemy adjusts. Silence until the moment after a burst, then grenades, then a lunging pair with a mine on a stick. A port that never fired all morning spits 3 rounds, the instant a wand shows at the bend. A vent, 6 feet above the trench floor, huffs smoke to blind the finish. The answer hardens just as quickly. Every flame run is followed by 2 satchels thrown not at the mouth but inside the dogleg. BARs stitch knee-height to catch the lunger. Riflemen keep 1 magazine of tracer to flag a new slit for the projector. The tank crews rehearse a disabled drill. If one Zippo stalls, the partner nudges it back by pushing the towing shackle and takes its lane without a pause, so the defenders never reclaim oxygen or nerve. Casualty math still punishes the wand team. Even with armor, there are corners only a man can bend. The protection is procedural. The operator rises once at a yard line everyone has agreed upon, not 3 times in panic. The assistant keeps the hose off the rock, so it cannot snag or chafe. A grenadier does not throw until the flame paints the inner wall, so the blast eats the right cavity. The squad leader counts the seconds allowed under his breath, so time does not stretch and steal courage. Exposure shrinks by inches, then by yards. Unit memory builds across the island. A corporal in 26th Marines passes a trick to a sergeant in 21st Marines about using a trenching tool to cut a toe, hold 1 terrace down, so the operator can set his stance before he rises. A tank commander from Company C, 5th Tank Battalion, briefs an infantry platoon on how to hand and arm signal a blind port without standing. An engineer section loans a spare igniter pack to a rifle company that burned through all of theirs before noon. None of this reads like legend. It reads like survival that can be taught. By evening, a line of white engineer tape snakes across the amphitheater, marking a lane taken position by position. Smoke hangs low and tastes metallic. A corpsman guides a stretcher around a stalled dozer, whose blade is still warm to the touch. The projector crew checks their nozzle with a gloved hand and gives a thumbs up no one can see inside the mask. The wand man sits on his heels and watches a single thread of grey slide from a crack that has not yet been forced open. He knows his place in the new order, not the tip, not any more, but the last turn of the key. The tanks will carry him to the door. He will still have to step through it. The difference is measured in how many steps remain. March 1st, 1945. Hill 362, B. North Ridge of Iwo Jima. Wind scrapes ash across the bench, cuts in sheets. 5th Marine Division inches along a trench that pinches to single file, and a flamethrower team waits at the elbow of a dogleg that still breathes smoke. The assistant checks the igniter cartridge with a thumbnail. The operator rolls his shoulders once under the cylinders, then goes still. Everyone around him knows the math. The first column in the ledger is target priority. The silhouette of twin tanks and a wand reads at 200 yards through dust, where a rifleman in web gear is only a blur. Japanese observers mark that outline and call it first every time. The second column is distance. Caves on 362B and the ground between it and Nishi Ridge are cut with underhung lips and doglegs that defeat long straight shots. To score a kill, a portable operator must stand inside the enemy's most lethal bracket, closer than any other specialist on the field. The third column is time on exposure. An M2 gives seconds of flame, not minutes. Every second the valve is open, the operator is tall, centered, and fixed by the hose. The fourth column is return. The moment after a burst is the deadliest because withdrawal lanes are already pre-sighted. Most men who fall do so on the way back, not the way in. A run on 362B shows, each piece in order. A Zippo clears the first mouth with 2 short bursts from outside grenade range. The trench ahead kinks left. The projector cannot see the bend. The wand team rises to finish. A grenadier on the far side throws as soon as the flame pauses. The assistant kicks the hose off a snag and drags the operator 1 step right so the next burst will paint deeper. Rifles fire from a side port that has not flashed all morning. A fragment clips the igniter lead and the wand gutters for a breath. In that breath, the enemy throws a second grenade, rolls smoke into the trench floor, and readies a lunge mine for the hull that must pivot to cover. The sequence is tuned to seconds, because both sides have learned the same timings. The operator is inside those seconds with no armor and no spare body to swap in. When he breaks contact to reach the resupply pit, that is when the planned crossfire wakes. Resupply is its own column in the cost. Engineers and shore party men relay 5-gallon cans forward through ash that behaves like ball bearings. Tanks need nitrogen, and fuel wands need fuel, and igniters both need parts that clog with dust. The resupply pit collects movement and sound, which draws attention. Enemy observers map it by counting how long after each flame run a cluster of Marines stirs at the same fold in the ground. The answer is a knee-high port that has not fired all day, suddenly coughing 3 rounds at the exact minute a team turns back empty. The operator is tall, then hose-dragging, chest-heaving mind, counting seconds to the next breath of fire. He cannot fire and move without wasting mix. He cannot go flat without kinking the line. That posture is a target in itself. Some losses happen without a shot. The kit fights the man. Cylinders ride high. The valve block is a hard edge. The hose bruises a knee on a lip of rock and the wand dips. If it dips, it drags. If it drags, it snags. The assistant is there to free it, but that means 2 men tall at once. The M2 can cough back if the igniter lead loosens, or the mix sputters in the wind that slides down a cave throat. A stall at the lip is worse than a miss at 20 yards, because every rifle that held fire to avoid the flame now has a center chest to study. There are places only a man can go, and those are the most expensive inches on Iwo Jima. Reverse slope vents cut into the backs of terraces, slits knee-high and a foot deep that open into side chambers. Steps chiseled for a single footfall so a grenadier can show for 1 second and vanish. Tanks cannot sight them. Satchels cannot be thrown with precision into them without seeing the bend. The wand must enter that space, and the man with it must enter the map the defenders have built. The casualty rate spikes exactly at those corners, and exactly at those seconds. Commanders do what they can to move numbers. Zippos lead gun tanks, guard dozers build low berms on the fly. Squad leaders set yard lines and cut toe holds with E-tools 1 terrace down so the operator can rise once only. BARs stitch knee height the moment a projector stops. Satchels are thrown 2 yards inside the dogleg, not at the mouth. Engineers walk spares forward in oilcloth and teach rifle companies how to swap igniters under a poncho. These shave seconds. They save some men. They do not change the fundamental. The wand man is the one tool that converts a surviving cave into a dead position at the corner a tank cannot see. The enemy knows this and spends every round to stop it. Dusk on 362B. A Zippo idles behind a lava lip exhaust ticking. Corpsmen move along the trench with iodine and morphine that is running out. An assistant kneels, wiping grit from the valve. The operator looks at the bend where a thin thread of smoke still walks the air. He understands the ledger. He will rise anyway because the next yard does not move until he does. The cost of that yard is why so many wand men do not finish the day. March 5th, 1945. North of Hill 362. B. The ground runs in ribs toward Kitano Point. Smoke holds low. A relay of M4, 3 Zippos from 5th Tank Battalion noses along a terrace cut, while rifle squads from 26th Marines signal ports with short tracer flicks. The sequence that felt improvised a week ago now runs with the steadiness of a drill. Projector up, short breath, gun tank covers. Dozer builds a berm from ash that acts like water. Then men finish the last bend with wands and satchels. The shift is visible even through dust. Zippos do not hunt alone. They move as pairs, sometimes as threes. 1 projector and 1 gun backed by a blade. If a projector coughs or stalls, the partner pushes its stern with the towing shackle and rolls into the same lane, so the defenders never reclaim a second of oxygen. Infantry stay tight to the skirts without stepping under them. Engineers trail close enough to hand up a spare igniter without shouting. The wand teams time their rise to the moment after the second burst, when the first chamber is still, when the side vents are most likely to inhale rather than exhale. Enemy measures harden as well. Silence until the last breath of a flame run, then grenades rolled by sound along trench floors, then a lunge mine flash from a cut that looked like bare rock. Ports that never fired all morning spit 3 rounds at the exact instant a wand lifts to curve fire around the dogleg. Vent shafts hide high a foot above eye level, so smoke falls into the operator's face, while a grenadier appears for 1 heartbeat at knee height. The only answer that works is to keep the rhythm unbroken. Flame. Satchel. Flame again if smoke clears too fast. BARs at knee height the instant the projector stops. Then a dozer nose pushing ash over the dead mouth while the next port is still blind. By March 8th, the language of the ground is different. On the northern ridges, the lane markers are not guesses. They are white engineer tape that traces where tanks can loiter and where men must step. Company commanders set yard lines for every run and rehearse them behind a lava lip with hand signs only because voices carry. Squad leaders carry e-tools to cut toe holds, 1 terrace down so the operator can set his stance and rise once only. Riflemen keep 1 magazine of tracer to paint any new slit that wakes when the first goes dark. Corpsmen and shore party details memorize the folds where they can work unseen. V Amphibious Corps moves nitrogen fuel and spares through beaches that keep swallowing trucks. Sailors in beach parties move cans in human chains when wheels fail. The names on the map keep pace with the method. 3rd Marine Division finishes chewing the galleries of Hill 382 and the amphitheatre. 4th Marine Division takes Turkey Knob's teeth down, 1 route at a time. 5th Marine Division works the ridges that run to Kitano Point. Each ridge a stack of problems, each problem with a port that will not die until a man stands and makes it breathe fire. None of this feels like a single turning point. It feels like pressure that no longer blinks, like a system that no longer gives the defenders a breath to reset. Sealing becomes the final verb of the day. A burned mouth that is left open can wake at dusk, fed from a chamber off to the side that never saw flame. Dozers nose ash and rock into the lips. Engineers lay quick charges 2 yards inside the bend to collapse the first dogleg where flame cannot pool. Rifle squads post a screen while the dust hangs because the enemy likes to test the new plug within minutes. When the plug holds, the lane behind it stops being a killing field and becomes a path for stretchers and cans and whispered orders. Casualties among WWII teams remain heavy, but the spike that once followed every first burst begins to flatten. The worst seconds are still the rise, the sweep, the first step back. Now those seconds are wrapped by tank arcs and BAR curtains that start at knee height and climb. Operators still fall on the way out, because withdrawal lanes are pre-sighted, but more make it to the berm, and more make it back a second time with a fresh igniter and a steadier hand. Night settles early on the north ridges. The wind drops and sound travels. A Zippo idles behind a lip, its exhaust ticking like a clock. The crew chief checks the projector nozzle with a glove nods once, and lowers himself into the turret. An engineer wipes grit from an igniter pack and tucks it into oilcloth. The WWII team studies a thread of smoke walking from a seam that has not yet taken a charge. The ground ahead is still a map drawn by the defenders, but the Marines now read it in real time, step for step, breath for breath. The web that held for days begins to tear along planned lines, because the men with flame no longer walk alone to the lip, and the tanks no longer flame without men. The rock gives not because it is weak, but because the sequence does not break. March 16th, 1945. The northern ridges above Kitano Point look like a forge gone cold. 5th Marine Division marks a final lane with white engineer tape that snakes through benches of black stone and sealed mouths. Zippos idle in relay behind a lava lip. Rifle squads kneel in the lee of a dozer berm. A WWII team studies a seam that exhales one stubborn thread of grey. The island feels finished, but no one believes it. The enemy has taught everyone here that silence can be a tactic. The run is almost ordinary now, and that is what saves lives. Projector up. Short breath that reaches and sticks. Gun tank offsets to catch the knee-high slit that always wakes when the first mouth goes dark. The WWII team rises once at the yard line, cut with an E-tool an hour ago. The assistant lifts the hose over a tooth of rock so it cannot snag. The operator paints the bend holds for a count that muscle knows better than the mind, then breaks exactly as BAR's stitch knee height. A satchel arcs 2 yards past the dogleg, not at it, because that is where the chamber truly begins. The seam coughs black and stops. A dozer noses ash into the lip while the next port is still blind. The lane behind them becomes a path for stretchers and cans. It is the shape of the past 3 weeks reduced to 1 clean minute. Across the island, the map collapses the same way, not by miracle but by repetition that does not break. 3rd Marine Division clears the last galleries around the amphitheatre and hill, 382. 4th Marine Division finishes Turkey Knob's route work with flame satchel blade and tape. 5th Marine Division squeezes the ridges into the final pocket toward Kitano Point. Kuribayashi's defense does not collapse, it runs out of oxygen and seconds. When he launches his last night attack near March 25th, it finds Marines who have learned to live in the dark ground with rifles already covering knee height, with dozers ready to shove ash over any mouth that wakes with Zippos fueled, and pointed at the places the island still breathes. The WWII men remain the hinge of every day. Many do not finish their runs. Some fall at the lip when a stalled igniter gives the defenders a heartbeat to shoot. More fall on the way back where withdrawal lanes are pre-sighted and the hose drags at the wrong moment. Their casualty rate stays brutal, even as tanks take the first bites and procedures shave seconds. Company rosters show it plainly. The silhouette of twin cylinders draws first. Fire the sequence of rise, aim, hold and break is legible to any defender who has lived in these tunnels for months. The numbers that later staff histories use to describe what happened here are born on these terraces in these seconds. The men who live with the projector know it too. A crew chief in Company C, 5th Tank Battalion, runs a gloved hand over a nozzle and feels grit that was not there an hour ago. A rifle squad leader from 26th Marines keeps 1 magazine of tracer sealed in his pocket, not because it is precious, but because he will need exactly that bright thread to flag a new slit for a Zippo at a moment when shouting will only carry a grenade. An engineer from 4th Marine Division cradles a spare igniter wrapped in oilcloth and counts his packs without looking down. A corpsman moves past them all. Iodine bottle knocked half-empty morphine syrettes bent in his pouch. None of it looks like legend. All of it looks like a system that has learned how not to blink. By March 16th, higher headquarters judged organised resistance broken. But the island was officially declared secure on March 26th. Marines still die here through March 26th, as pockets refuse to surrender, and tunnels reveal second and third chambers at the moment. Men think they have found the back wall. After the guns go quiet, the benches keep their shape. There are sealed lips with ash smoothed like plaster. There are white lines of engineer tape half buried by wind. There are trenches with toe holds hacked into stone, where men taught themselves to rise once only and no more. The ledger that explains why so many wand men fell is written into that ground target priority distance, seconds of exposure, pre-sighted withdrawal lanes. The counter-ledger that explains why any of them lived is there too, armor first men at the last bend, a sequence that did not break. The island gives its last breath to the sea. Engines tick down. Boots scuff ash that has lost its heat. A wand team walks past a projector, crew nods and does not speak. Everyone here understands that victory did not look like a flag or a single charge. It looked like men and machines learning to move together in a place built to kill them separately. It looked like a sequence carved out of terror and held long enough to change the map by yards. On Iwo Jima, that was the only way through, and it is why the men who carried fire paid so much to make tunnels go silent.